Okay, so it's called soapstone, and no, it's not the rock. Hit number 1. Okay. So what is the soapstone you speak of, Miss N? All right. It is an acronym. Anyone guess that? Okay. So this is kind of how you tailor a persuasion, an argument, a speech. You need to find these things. You need to focus on these things. 1, the speaker. Okay. The voice or persona behind the writing. That's you. Or if you're writing something, that might be the character you're writing about. O is for occasion, the time and the place of the writing, or the context which prompted the writing. Okay? So, for example, if I give you an essay, you're going to write that with a much different tone than if you were texting a friend. Right? That's occasion. Okay? If you guys are applying for a job and you write a cover letter, there's a certain format for that. If you don't have a certain format, that employer is going to think you don't know what you're doing, right? That's why we practice with formats on things like MLA and Works Cited. Okay, it's used to writing in formats. Audience, the group of readers to whom this writing is addressed. Same thing, okay? If you are writing a college application essay versus a letter to a friend in class, which you guys don't do anymore because of technology, but in mine that you like threw notes across the room, your writing is going to be very different. Bless you. Purpose, the reason for this writing, the writer's goal. Okay, that's the main thing. What is the goal of your writing? What is the goal of this monologue? And then our second S is for subject, the topic that this writing examines. Different topics are going to mean different things. And lastly, the tone. What is the tone? Someone remind me what tone is. Anybody? Grant?
The writer's attitude towards the subject or audience.
Nailed it! Okay? Tone is the way the author feels towards a topic. Alright? So, are you guys on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's kind of like
great,
phasing
yeah.
out in your guys' age group, but how many of you are like related to relatives? I'm sorry. You're all related to relatives. How many of you guys are friends with relatives on Facebook? Most of them older, maybe grandparents, okay? Have you ever seen a grandparent post something super politically incorrect and you're just like, oh my gosh? I don't know about you guys, but I have family members that do it and I just cringe, okay? So, think about tone. Think about like their attitude towards the subject. You're going to post something very different on Facebook than you're going to post something in an argumentative essay, right? Okay. That's the author's attitude towards the subject. Typically, you want an objective tone, which means they should not know your opinion on the subject. Just like when I teach, I always have an objective tone when it comes to politics, right? I'm not going to teach you guys a certain slant when we're talking about A, social justice, or B, anything related to literature, right? Okay, any questions on this? We're going to go in depth on each one. So if you're like, I don't get it, we're fine. So why is this important? Okay, think about directing your argument to your audience. Okay, so if I want my husband to take me to Starbucks, I'm going to approach that argument real differently than I approach something with Mr. Palmer, right? You don't think so?
Why would you ask Mr. Palmer to be Starbucks?
I'm not saying Mr. Palmer, I'm just saying like trying to persuade someone. I'm going to approach my husband very differently than I approach Mr. Palmer, right? Okay, so that's why this is important to direct your audience. Just like if you ask your mom, okay, who approaches their mom and their dad differently?
Oh, me.
Okay, I did hardcore. With my mom, it was always, Mom, please have motion. Dad, it was like you had to have this logical argument of like why you wanted to do something, what time you would be home, right? Yeah. Okay, so directing your audience is important. Using the appropriate tone, okay? You're going to ask your mom to sit at a friend's house in a much different tone than you scold a sibling for being annoying. Right? Imagine. Okay, Justin. Do you and Joe gonna do it sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you took that tone and used it with your mom and asked him to go to a friend's house, you think that would work out very well?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, right? Okay. Purpose of your writing. Sending a text to your BFF versus submitting a college application essay. Right? Your purpose is very different. If you approach that purpose of texting your friend as to do a college application essay, you're not going to college. No.
What if your BFF is like the college application?
Then that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaker. So this is getting into that first S of soapstone. So just in case you guys forgot how to spell it, because it's a really difficult word. So we're here. We're on the speaker, okay? This is the voice that tells the story. Which of the three rhetorical appeals, ethos, logos, or pathos, would connect to the speaker, the person that tells the story? Ethos. Why? Keep going, right? You're good.
Credibility.
Yes, it's the credibility, okay? So your voice determines how effective you're going to be. Like I said, if I went to math and was trying to convince you guys how important math is, are you going to, like, believe me? Probably not, because I don't use math in my daily life. So I have a calculator. Okay? You must decide whose voice is going to be heard, your own, a biased one, a fictional character. We need to plan out how to insert and develop the characteristics of the speaker that will influence the piece. Okay? Basically, why should I, as the audience, listen to you? Okay? You have to convince them through your credibility, through your character, that you are worth listening to. Because if you don't buy into that speaker, you're not going to pay attention. Okay? You're not going to listen. Alright. Now we're on occasion. We're on our O right here. So the time and the place of the piece or the context that inspired the writing. Writing does not occur in a vacuum. You are writing for a purpose, okay? So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to entertain me? Are you trying to inform me? Are you trying to persuade me? What is your purpose, okay? So think about this. When you're writing a resume versus a comedy show, you're going to have a specific format for your resume, and you're going to have a specific format for your comedy show, right? Has anyone ever been to a comedy show or watched it on like TV? Okay, there's always like a certain format of like introducing, getting to the substance, finishing it, whatever. There's a format for that, okay? Same thing with an argumentative essay, which we will learn how to do. There's a format, and a cover letter, there's also a format, okay? So when I'm talking about occasion, you guys have to know how to write in a certain format. Just like on Twitter, when there was a 140 character limit, you had to know how to write something in that limit of time versus Instagram or versus Facebook. Okay, different formats. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Yes, no. One blank stairs. Okay, audience. Who's familiar with this Kaepernick guy? Anyway? Is anyone not familiar with this? Alright, so do you guys know who Colin Kaepernick is?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay, so Colin Kaepernick was the NFL player who started the kneeling in the national anthem. Okay? Very controversial because it was seen as, some people saw it as disrespectful, some people saw it as a disrespectful stance to veterans. Alright, so there's a lot of this issue of people who understood this is like, okay, there are social justice issues among African Americans that need to be addressed. And there was another side that said, this is not, we're like in a free country, right? And this is not anything to do with that. It has something to do with not respecting the flag or the military. So, he didn't play in the NFL for like 5 years. He just won a lawsuit actually for basically saying that the NFL owners like worked against him together so that he couldn't play. So he just won like a huge lawsuit. But Nike picked him up and was like, we're going to use Nike in our advertisements. So, if you look at the writing, it says, believe in something even if it means sacrificing anything, okay? This was super, super, super controversial because now Nike took an already controversial figure and put them in their own ads. And my dad, for instance, he's one of those people that sees his kneeling as very disrespectful to the flag. He's like, I don't want to buy Nike anymore. I'm only going to wear Under Armour and this. And I was like, okay, sure. But he's one of those people, okay? Do you think my dad was Nike's audience for this ad? No. They weren't looking at 50-year-old white men, were they? When creating this ad. They have a target audience of younger kids who are aware of social justice issues, okay? So, do you think Nike would have spent millions of dollars on an advertisement campaign if they didn't know who their audience was? No. They're okay with losing those 50-year-old white men like my dad. Alright? That's why audience is so important. You have to tailor to that specific audience. You have to know who your audience is. Okay? So the group of readers to whom this piece is directed to determine who the audience is that you intend to speak to. Alright? So my seniors last year had to write a anti-bullying guide for freshmen.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I wasn't here last year.
You weren't here last year. So it was last semester.
No, I remember that.
So an anti-bullying guide, and they had to tailor it to freshmen. So they kept using big words. I'm like, at 13 or 14, do you think you would know how to use those words? And they were like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, you gotta dumb it down a little bit, right? So that kind of age level the kids can understand. All right, now we're in purpose. This is P of our soapstone, okay? This is the reason behind the text. Why on earth are you doing this, other than me telling you? Okay, how are your cupcake goldfish, by the way?
Actually, now I have flavor blast.
Excellent.
Cheddar.
Was that a donation?
No.
Oh, okay. So, author's purpose. What are you trying to do? Before you write anything or do anything or text anyone, what is your purpose? You have the purpose, right? Subject. We are on our second S. The topic that you are writing about. Focus on the task you've been assigned throughout the writing process. This is all about staying on task and staying focused, okay? So, this is actually something that happened with my seniors, okay? It was terrible. When your essay is about arguing whether or not animals deserve legal protections, but your first body paragraph goes into a rant about why you should be vegetarian, okay? Is that focused? No. I had a bunch of seniors do that. They're supposed to be arguing about why animals should or should not deserve legal protections, and then they would go into like, you should be a vegetarian because it's like, no. Okay? That's not staying on subject. That's why in your essays you have a thesis statement, right? And then I say if you go off that thesis statement or you go away from the prompt, your grade gets marked down. Because in life, if you can't stay on top of your subject, you're going to have trouble. Okay? So, this is all about staying on task and staying focused, basically. Are you on subject? Okay? Any questions? Okay. Tone, the attitude of the author. The spoken word can convey the speaker's attitude and help show the meaning through tone of voice. Okay? So, we understand what tone is, right? It's the author's attitude towards the subject. So, your attitude towards the subject is seen in diction, the choice of words, right? The words that you choose are influenced by how you feel about the topic. If you hate something when you're writing about it, you're typically not going to use, like, lovey words, right? Or nice words. It's affected in the syntax, which is the way you construct your sentences, and imagery, okay? And the other types of figurative language that you use. It says right there, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, okay? That's tone. Okay. Does this work? Oh no! I forgot Facebook doesn't work. Okay. So, what we're gonna do, we're gonna watch an example. I'm trying to think of what I want to do. Hold on. Okay, so you're going to read Shakespeare's To Be or Not to Be speech from Hamlet, and you're going to complete a soapstone of the speech. Okay? When you get to P for purpose, identify the rhetorical appeal. What is being used to achieve the purpose? If you find something other than ethos, pathos, logos, go for it. Okay? So, if you go back to your module, go ahead and click this right here. Complete soapstone analysis. I have it right here. Like, remember how we talked yesterday about rhetorical devices?
Oh, are those all rhetorical devices? Like ethos, pathos, logos,
Yeah.
all that? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Questioning, figurative language, all of that, right? What does he do to achieve his purpose?
Okay.
Alright, eyeballs, stay with me. Okay. So, here's the monologue, the speech, and here's where you're going to analyze it. Alright? So, let's read this together. It's from the play Hamlet. In this play, in this speech, Hamlet finds out that his uncle, the current king of Denmark, has killed his father, who was the previous king of Denmark. Okay? So I'm Hamlet. My uncle killed my dad, who was the king of Denmark. Okay? Hamlet has been urged by the ghost of his father to avenge his death, but Hamlet hesitates and debates the decision. Okay? So, Hamlet gets visited by his dead dad, which is like frighteningly enough, right? I'm already like freaked out that happens to me. So, Daddy's ghost visits him, And Hamlet hesitates and is like, do I avenge the death of my dad, okay? So in this speech, what is his purpose? He's to himself, it's a soliloquy actually, he's talking to himself. He's figuring out whether or not to avenge his death. So do we know the purpose already? Do we have our P figured out? Yes, we do. Okay? Whether or not to avenge his death. So on the bottom page, P, purpose, to avenge his father's, whether or not to avenge his father's death. Type that right now. Okay. All right. So let's read this together just like yesterday, okay? This is one of the most famous Shakespeare soliloquies. So stay with me so you know what's being said, okay? So I'll wait for eyeballs. I will wait for eyeballs. Justin Riley. Brayden. Okay, ready? To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. This is a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. There's the rub. For in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled of this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than to fly to others that we not know of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with its regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Soft you now, the fair Ophelia, nymph in thy orisons, be all my sins remembered. Okay? What just happened? That was rough. Okay? So, when you guys do this on your own...
Wait, what?
Not right now. We'll do it together. Pick elements that you understand, and go from there and analyze that. Okay? So, let's do this together. Okay? Remember...
I thought we were doing this on a...
No. What? Yes, soliloquy. Okay. So, let's go through this and analyze what this means in real language today. Okay? He says, to be or not to be, that is the question. That's pretty simple, right? He's saying, what's the right answer? Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing and then. What does that mean? Erica? Focus.
He's trying to decide whether it's better to just deal with it or to...
Yes. Because he says, suffer the slings and arrows of fortune, right? The fortune was like his dad was dead. Or to take arms against a sea of troubles. That's a metaphor. So to take arms or to go fight against his uncle, right? And by opposing and then. So we've got that. So he's debating, okay, is it better to deal with what happened to me, or do I go and fight the sea of trouble? That's a metaphor. That's a rhetorical device, okay? Alright, now, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Okay, what does that mean? So he says, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Okay? Yes. Good job. Alice.
Does he say that, does he want, like he's like debating on whether he wants to kill his uncle and like because he knows that his uncle goes and like
Yes. Because he says,
yeah.
yeah, he says the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. He was heir to the throne, right? Before his dad died. Okay? So he's saying to die, to sleep no more. Like he doesn't get to do that anymore. Okay? This is a consummation devoutly to be wished. What does that mean? The action of making a marriage or relationship complete. Okay? Consummation's like, typically it's used in like marriage, like when you consummate a marriage. But it also could be used like if you like consummate, if you like agree on something, like the final result of ending something. So, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Okay? What's he saying? He wants him dead. Okay, at this point. So now, repetition, right? To die, to sleep. Now, here is to sleep. Perchance to dream. There's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. Okay? So right now he wants to kill him, right? He's saying, in sleep, there's a chance to dream. Because in that sleep of death, what dreams will have come to him. When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Okay? For who could bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Okay? So, this part's probably the most confusing part. What's happening? Any ideas? For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Okay, let's look up quietus. Death or something that causes death.
Is he wondering why he did that?
Yeah. So did you guys see what that was, what quietus was? Death or something that causes death, okay? When he himself might his death make with a bare bodkin. A bodkin is a blunt, thick needle with a large eye used for drawing tapered cord or hem. So check this out. Who could bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, okay? So what could bear the whips and scorns of time? So he's kind of like connecting that to hell, right? Like, if you do something wrong, you've got to deal with the whips and scorns of time forever in that sleep of death. He says the oppressor's wrong, okay? So, like, you know what an oppressor is? Okay? An oppressor is someone who is in power and oppresses people for certain reasons. So in this case, he's saying his uncle, the King of Denmark. The oppressor's wrong. The proud man's contumely. The pangs of despised love. So all of these things he's saying will bear the whips and scorns of time forever. Okay, that patient merit of when he himself might his death make with a bare bodkin. Okay? Now, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than to fly to others that we not know of. Okay? We're getting more confusing before we get easier. That's why we're doing this speech together and not on your own. To grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than to fly to others that we not know of. What do you think he's saying? No idea. Okay. To grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns. Erica? Yeah. Okay. He's saying the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns. Okay. Puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than to fly to others that we not know of. So he's saying, right? Now he's talking about, do I just deal with it? Stay with me. Now he's saying, do I just deal with it? He says, do I grunt under like a hard life and the dread after death? Okay. To the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills,
or it makes us deal with those troubles that we have rather than to fly to others that we not know of. Okay? So do we have to deal with it, or can we just run away? Basically what he's saying. Janessa?
Is he kind of like debating here if he should do this because he's worried about
Yes.
what consequences would come with after death?
Yes. Okay. So he's debating, okay, do I deal with it? Do I kill him? And then he has a lot of issues with death, right? Because he's also saying he'll put this man to death, the sleep of death. But he's also saying if he kills him, he'll also have to deal with that. So then we get to the end, okay? Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. What does that mean? That was pretty simple. Nathan Woodworth. Okay? I'm using you, Kana. What's conscience? What's a conscience? Yes. If you do something bad, you're going to be guilty, right? Conscience does make cowards of us all. What's a coward? Okay. So, conscience makes us cowards. What does he mean by that? Yes, his fear of, like, if he kills him, right, he's gonna feel guilty about it. That goes back to the whole dealing with it thing, if he does kill him, okay? So he's saying my worry of guilt makes me a coward and not want to do it. Now, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought, okay? So, and then he says, and thus, so because of that worry of guilt, because of that conscience, the native hue of resolution, what's resolution? What's a resolution? He says the end.
Compromise solution, kind of.
Yeah, so like the solution, okay? So like the solution to this problem of my uncle killed my dad. Thus the ability to resolve this issue is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought, okay? So he's saying the opportunity to resolve this, it's being stopped by my worries, okay? I'm thinking this too much. Now he says, and enterprises of great pith in moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action, okay? So, you know what enterprises are? Enterprises are like businesses or moments, okay? So my ability to do this, with this regard their turn awry and lose the name of action, okay? So he's saying if I'm too worried about the sorrow in the moment, I'm going to lose my ability to do this. Soft you now. So now he's calling himself like soft, or he's like, soft you now. So he's kind of being like, suck it up, big guy. The fair Ophelia. Okay, who's Ophelia? Someone Google that. Yes. Who's Ophelia? Someone Google it. Who is Ophelia? Okay, so the noblewoman of Denmark. You were close, Nate. And what does she stand for? Nathan?
It says that she's a character model. She's very strong. Hamlet, she is a noblewoman. I can't find anything else.
Okay, so who is he alluding to? He's alluding to this woman of Denmark, right? He says nymph. What's a nymph? Yeah, Kira.
I found that like Ophelias are usually evil spirits taking the form of a object picture in the real world or like
Hold on.
any haunting or spirit.
Okay. Okay, so check this out. When he says soft, you know, he's telling himself to stop soliloquizing. Right, we talked about that. He was like, stop being a baby about it. Oh, man. Okay. He has to put on a different face and a different manner with this delicate young woman. Evidently, she is holding a prayer book, and he seems to be asking her to remember him in her prayers. Some critics believe that he was referring to the sins they've committed together. That doesn't make sense. That's not what we're looking for. Who is Ophelia? What?
Was the audience to yourself?
Yes. Okay, while we look at that, we're going to look at Ophelia. The fair Ophelia, nymph. Do you guys know what a nymph is? So it's a mythological spirit of nature imagined as a beautiful maiden. Okay, so he's calling Ophelia this, like, beautiful maiden, basically. In thy orisons be all my sins remembered. Okay, orisons. What's that? Yep. So in my prayers, remember my sins. So what do you think he's decided? It's plausible. Okay. So, also, check this out. Where is it? Do you think he's considering suicide in this? There's elements of it, right? Where he's talking about this section. He could be talking about himself. He's saying to sleep, perchance to dream, there's the road. For in that sleep of death what dreams may come. When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause of the respect that makes calamity of so long life. It's kind of saying like, oh, like if we're here, right, I can sleep through this and get over my dad's death. Because he's talking about we have shuffled off this mortal coil. We've gone through our mortal lives. And I can live my heavenly life. Okay? So, this is one of the more difficult ones to understand because there's lots of different ideas about it. Nate? But when you're doing the soapstone, it's fairly easy. Okay? So, speaker, who's the speaker? Huh? Hamlet, okay. And how does he use his own character to enhance his effectiveness here? Yeah.
He's the son and the heir to the throne.
Yes, he's the son and the heir to the throne. Okay, so he constantly refers to like elements of his dad's death and these other nobles.
He's the son of what? Wait, he's an Arid?
Heir, H-E-I-R.
H-E what?
I-R. Heir.
Heir of the throne. He's gonna soul.
Alright, so what I would like you guys to do, try to finish this on your own, and then we'll talk about it, okay? So I want to see how far you can get on this. So next would be occasion, okay? What is the occasion? What's his like deal here? Yeah, Nate.
For the purpose